I'm glad you do this.
Yeah. All right. Jason is excused. So do I have a chance to read the minutes? Qualify and see whether they're perfect. Our main meeting was council, and I think we had questions and comments, and we probably should follow up some of them, whether tonight or next meeting.
Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted to have a recap of it. It's been a while, but that's a thoughts about it or. Because it was her, or I think it's the minutes, but it's council. I think we talked a little bit about his memory, it was May, so.
Yeah, right. Public comment?
Have a visitor, hi, wanted to say hello, I'm talking to on the phone today.
I'm married 4 years ago. Supporter of the Parks Department. It's here, city operation. Yes. Welcome, thank you.
New business. CIP.
So we'll just, if you guys want to have a conversation about the meeting, or did you want it to have a slide, it's still information. We're not really ready to follow that.
Yeah.
Well, August, so we did.
Yeah, right.
We did it in September or something. Okay, we'll put that on the agenda, and just make sure that we touch base on anything, unless anybody has memory off the top of their head. A little bit.
Who's there? Jason. It's gonna be good. There's a Soviet, isn't it? Yeah, Soviet was.
We'll follow up, we'll put some information together and then, because we did like have some preparatory notes, and so we'll put some information together and then we'll just have to make sure that we're on the same page.
So Park CIP, okay, let's jump right on that. We sent that out to you also. Nikki was great enough to give you a copy in the packet. So you guys all know Stacy, she's been to several of our last meetings, and she's our capital project coordinator, and she does an amazing job helping keep all of these different projects afloat. I mean, it's amazing how many projects we have happening. And it takes a village, but she is putting the things in that, so we're grateful for her. So she and I are going to share in the presentation tonight, and we're just going to summarize the different projects as to what we're working on and where we're at in the process. If you have any specific questions, we can answer those. And so we'll just jump right in. So the way that the report's formatted is we kind of did a review. We just did this for council last night, and so you can get it fresh hot off the press. But we typically do an annual report, so this is kind of from last July to this year. So the beginning part is talking about our completed projects. And you know, the Gateway project, many of you participated, I think, in the original stakeholders group when we talked about the gateways, and we created, you know, Lakewood, there's at least 14 different ways to get into town. And so, you know, people at the beginning were thinking about, we started it in the very beginning because US Open was coming, and we wanted to have this, we knew that we were gonna bring hundreds of thousands of people to our community. So that's why we did the first one at Bridgeport. So, but since that time, council supported 14 different gateways. We are down to our last two. So, even though there's replacements happening, so we did try and coordinate several of them with, public works projects, with the road project, so it's really a good use of our public funds. So the last two that were done was North Gate and Edgewood, that was, they were doing veterans and it's kind of in between there, veterans in Washington. It's kind of in between them, so they completed that one, which comes in off that North Gate highway from GBLM. And then the Nyanza sign, which was done many years ago, they did the traffic circles at that location, and so then they replaced the entry sign at that location. And then just, the never ending Bridgeport sign that's been hit so many different times, which was our original sign, and it is really important. So that is being replaced and repaired. We're reducing the footprint a little bit and anchoring the area a little bit more, adding some crocodiles and a little bit of electric wire to keep people from. Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, that one is being rebuilt, and that particular one, thank goodness, we don't always catch the folks, but the individual that goes through it, like, touchdown, has insurance, EAT, so they're gonna be, replacing it, so that should be done, hopefully by the end of August.
So we were doing that a little bit of time, continually. Is there some sort of right size for a gateway?
Well, it depends on the location, and so when we created the gateway, it was scalable, and so not all the gateways are exactly the same size. Although the footprint was very similar for each of them. So it just really depends on the location. We work with Public Works Engineering again to determine site distance, so that we can see, you know, that's important. But, it's just one of those things, it was kind of always the same corner that get hit, so we're kind of taking the wings off of it and anchoring it a little bit, so the rocks would hopefully get us door up them. Yeah. Yeah, so we're working on that, but it has been scalable, and so size has varied based on the location, so, yeah. Yes. The American Lake parking lot, the overflow parking lot that we did, was created primarily because they were losing the street parking. But it's been really effective. It's been open since the end of last summer, last summer. And that has provided great parking for, the neighborhood area. The neighbors have actually looked at about how that has provided some support for all the people that are generally all. So that's good. We talked about the street end update. You guys were involved with that. We did the report to council earlier this, or at the end of last year. And that study is really looked at all those street ends in a different way as to how they could possibly be used, but also look at some of the limitations, approaches, etc. So the idea is to do a pilot project as part of the 25-26 budget. And so we'll be coming back as we develop those priorities to see kind of what the best location is. We've had some conversations with council regarding some potential sites with American Lake, the Pennsylvania Red, I didn't even mention, you know, American Lake, the Lake City Boulevard is where we send everybody for fishing, it's easy access with parking, there's folks using it on a regular basis, and that would be, there's a bit of encroachment on that site. The other suggestion was on the east side of, or the west side, and with the other side from Edgewater, Lake Stillington, and there's a potential site there that's quite flat, would be ADA accessible. It will be improved. It's also being used by the neighbors. You can see by the activity that's there, but not nearly so much. So, but we'll be bringing that forward. But the idea is to.
I have a question about that one too. The rumor around still lake, this one house is going to be condemned and turned into. I don't think we decided that.
Well, I think there's.
I can give you
Sure.
individual who bought a house in the south. South. Access does. almost 2 years. Stop. 2 weeks ago. House. Council is out. So it's fine.
Not very.
That's why the rumors are planned.
And the city's been working on this for, gosh, 4 years probably. We learned about this, we talked a little bit about airport. So there's been a lot of conversation and opportunity to work with something new. That was just out there. But I think that that's just not- we're not able to do that. So the opportunity, there's lots of potential opportunities. So, rumor has it that could occur. Rumor has it. We'll talk about that in just a second when we get to that. So the next page, looking at the next project, works like land acquisition, another very complicated, nothing's easy around here. Another very complicated land acquisition. We started this again as well in 2020. We were able to purchase a little piece of property on the 25th Avenue side, with the words like that, the lower end of the park, but then there was 10.5 acres behind the cinema, the 11th, so it's been around for a while. It was really a natural border to the park. And there were just several land use issues involved, so it took quite a bit of time, but it finally was closed in June, so we're really grateful for that. So those acres now are part officially of the city park, and although not a part of phase 1 and 2, which we'll reference later, but now the city can look at how we can use all that land for yes. And then Springbrook Park, Stacy, want to tell me a little bit about Springbrook?
Sure, this week we're actually hearing substantial completion on the main project improvements to more real estate, community garden, open space improvements, and so that's just good, and as we, the restoration of October. And we will, we're also anticipating, and we, the city's first. Very exciting. And then between, this substantial completion and the all numbers, the garden road, and Google Scouts to install the new garden beds. Compost beds.
As you recall, the Eagle Scouts, the brothers came in once doing the benches and then that compost, so it'll all happen, it's all happening, so. Hoping that we can get that done in the month, or August-ish. So those are kind of the big projects that have been completed, lots of projects underway in various stages of, improvement, just starting with Fort Sullivan Park, the boundary line adjustment. As we all know, the city worked hard over several years to get the owner of Fort Sullivan Park. That was a long process. I think most people figured the city owned it, but we leased it. We actually subleased it and we leased it from the state. So now we own the park. And then Pierce College at the same time received ownership of land, and they want to do some boundary line adjustment to remove their responsibility, so to speak, of Wahop Lake. So there's that they've been working on that for quite some time, and city stepped in to help them move forward. And so we're hoping that that will be happening before the end of this year. They as a state agency have to work with college trustees and then the Department of Enterprise Services for the state land. And so they've just got a lot of hoops that they're going through as well, but we're helping them get through those hoops so that we can get that done and just tidy everything up. Motor Avenue, the lighting project, that is Motor Avenue, is where the new artwork was. There's a portion of trees there that are near the QFC building and the CVS building that is actually in the right of way. And so we're looking at some lighting. We're looking at some up lighting, some down lighting, and some other improvements to that area. And, it's still a work in progress. We did put in new light posts. It's really not giving the effect that we needed. A big problem is, which I forgot to mention last night, is that it's a whole, these, all these, not all oak trees, but different trees, and it's just be able to trench through all those roots. It's really, to get under lighting, it's gonna be a challenge it can hurt the integrity of the tree. So we're really trying to figure out how to make this opportunity there to give the effect that is desired with still utilizing the area properly. So, and so we're working through that. But that's underway. Chambers Creek Trail, many of you were able to go down, or you have since we did the bridge that connected our communities, University Place, Pierce County, and the city of Lakewood. So now from that bridge and that area, Phillipsburg, Kobayashi, to go all the way to the other side of, it's about 2.5 miles. And so the design's done. We're in permitting. University Place is managing the permitting. Pierce County is managing the project, and they're using impact fees. And so because it took a year to collect the impact fees before you could start using them, and then they program them out, the idea is to start in 2024 with the construction and to be done by the end of the year. So if all the permitting goes as expected. So that's very exciting, and that is really going to make a big difference. That's really
phase 2, right?
That's phase 2, yeah. And so kind of they had initially, there were like 5 phases. We narrowed it to 3, and it's really it's broken into 2 phases now. So that will really complete the project to the end. So with the idea that somewhere down the line, and Councilmember Anderson, you might have even more information with your day job, is that at some point we'd be ending up down by that bridge, so that we can then connect at some point when that bridge is replaced, it'll connect pedestrian access across there, so you can actually get from the end of that trail to Chambers Bay, and then that opens up that whole pedestrian experience. So that'll be super cool. And when anything get that bridge.
There is substantial work going on behind the scenes to plan for removal.
Yeah, and there'd be some connected point, right, at that point. So yeah.
You have to put a new bridge in. If you take the, excuse me, not the bridge with dam, if the dam goes out, the bridge has to go because it can't take the tile floor. So it's going to be relocated, reapplied. Next one, somewhere, sometime within the extended range of the Federal Infrastructure Act. That's going to be hopefully a major component of the planning.
And the cool thing is connecting that trail to there, and then, the Abitibi Mill property, there's some planning for that. I mean, it really will make such an improvement to that whole area, and then in a way that's really compatible with the environment. So another.
The environment, the mill property plan includes daylighting the stream that comes out and is now culverted down under the road. There's actually a little waterfall back up in the Harrison Springs.
Yeah, it's really, the people doing that, at least I saw the presentation, it was a year ago, maybe longer. They really want to work with the environment, and they've done some really creative things, and how Chambers Bay has retained some of the elements of history there with the gravel pits and stuff. They would be doing some of the similar things, but it could be a really cool project. I'll take my grandchildren to someday when it's finally done. Let's see. So that's Chambers Bay, or Chambers Creek Trail. Working through there, and Stacy, why don't you talk a little bit about Words Lake project? That's a big one.
So Words Lake, we've been working on phase 1 for quite some time now, and we're in permitting. And we've received approval of the grant funding for phase 2, and we're trying to expedite that design process. So the thought being that we're going to combine construction of both phase 1 and phase 2 now, and the completion estimation of that would be early 2025. So phase 1 includes improvements to the main access of the park, including a larger pump tracker and 10,000 square feet, 2 accessible loop trail systems, a bridge over Ward Lake, and some entry improvements in coordination with public works engineering. So there'll be a new signal going in at the intersection of Pine and Ford, and really improve the accessibility of that site, so difficult to notice. And then along the back side of the park, on the corner of 88, an off-leash dog park, off-street accessible parking, the one in there. The scope of phase 2 includes additional improvements along the backside of the park off 25th with a new neighborhood park and playground and some off-street parking, as well as coordination of a around 3-acre BMX or bike track area, which we are coordinating with Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance to coordinate the design and stewardship of that area. And then additional improvements to the main entry with Portland New and expanded parking, a new shelter, and then connection of that initial trail system across the park to the main neighborhood. And then phase 3 is to be determined, but would anticipate connection of phases 1 and 2 with that purchase acquisition behind the cinema of that 10.5 acres. So connection of all 3 phases, and it's a lot. It's exciting improvements to really activate that area and improve the use. And, well, it's 35 acres. American Lake Park access improvements, we're currently at about 90% design and halfway into permitting for that project. We do anticipate the potential for delay for the in-water work, around the bulkhead, and anticipate splitting construction to both accommodate the delay in that environmental permitting, as well as keeping the park open for the summer of 2024 for public access. So the construction schedule is anticipated to begin in 2024 for the upland improvements, and then complete the upland improvements before summer by June. Take a pause for summer, and then the in-water work with relocating the dock and the bulkhead improvements will begin fall of 2024 through early spring of 2025. To summarize the improvements that are happening in that park, a new accessible route from the upper parking lot to the shoreline, and new retaining walls to support that work and all along the shoreline. Some new stairs, a new plaza at the front entryway, and some playground improvements and additions, as well as a new restroom. And at the shoreline, some additional plaza space and the shoreline improvements that I just spoke about with the dock relocation to improve this one experience and separate that from the boat area and improve access along the building.
Can you somehow, that part you just said, can I get a copy of that to take to my neighbors? So we can-
Yeah.
The improvements that you just said, it was wonderful. And I want them to know.
It should be in summary there.
Drawing.
And then here's a drawing that shows the upland and the dale, but we can provide.
That's one of my desks too, but it's one I grabbed, but it's just an 11x7 rental. Oh, no, I know.
This will show the difference between the upland and
Okay.
the upland doesn't go all the way down to the beach, so.
The bulkhead is the one that's painted right now. That's the bulkhead, or
That is the retaining wall.
it's retaining.
So the bulkhead is basically at the beach, from between the boat launch parking and the sandy beach.
Okay.
So it's just supporting the corner of that parking lot
sorry.
essentially.
Okay.
It's the one that's framed in blue.
Yep,
Yeah,
so the bulkhead
the
is
bulkhead.
actually
Oh,
quite small compared to all the retaining walls, but it's fronting the corner of that parking lot, and then there'll be actually a new, elevated aluminum walkway that's gonna connect the dock location to the other side of the.
And it's the, you can put new boat launch tracks in there as well. Nothing else.
We're not doing the work in boat launching for this project.
The next project, the strip infills at Fort Slocum Park, we awarded a contract to move construction in May and have been working through some of the pre-construction, permitting and submittals. We think there's some long lead time on some of those items, but we anticipate starting, putting the fencing up starting August 7th at the park to mobilize for the construction and then anticipate construction through early 2024, so February to April, anticipated completion of that project. And again, this field one at the corner, but I don't know if you all have seen to the new entryway improvements of the park that Public Works just finished. Just before Fort Sullivan, I think it's really amazing. The field one improvements, including Pierce College's baseball home field and turf improvements for fields 2, 3, and 4.
And there's a groundbreaking, they're doing a kind of a cookie groundbreaking, we're doing on Thursday at 5 o'clock there, with the college and the city. Kind of officially show that partnership, and, so that'll be happening at 5 o'clock, and, we'll have doubles and some refreshments. Huh?
Hard hats and shovels.
Hard hats and shovels, no hard hats, but we do have shovels, so, we'll be doing a little groundbreaking there, to, show the partnership and, build it. And then we'll do a big to-go array to do a dedication for it, so. That'll be happening this Thursday, at 5. Just to jump in, so Sealy Lake, that's a project, again, it started in 2020, we were doing some work right before COVID, or actually, I think technically COVID had just started, didn't know much about it. But we were really working to create this improved space next to Lakewood Community Center, which at the time, of course, our senior activity center had been there for 15 years. And so we were working with the county on this project to, first of all, learn more about the stormwater system and how it worked and the environmental impacts to that, but also talk about safety, access, and improvements for access, year-round improvements. So a lot of work's been done, a lot of study was done, and now we kind of did the initial design and development, and now we sort of handed it to Pierce County to implement the project. They, in the meantime, a bunch of work was done to do some trail enhancement and to limb things up and open it up. There was a lot of nonsense between like the trail and the backside of Big Lots and the post office, and so a lot of cleanup was happening there, so they made it a lot easier to use. And then the main improvement will be taking where they had that lower parking lot, they're gonna be taking that all out and turning the trailhead up to the top of that and make it more of just an accessible trail and eliminate some of the stuff that was down there. They've already gated it off but now, of course, the facility is not being used as a senior activity center, probably will not be back in that facility based on its condition as a senior activity center. So we see, there's still value in making Sealy Lake improvements just because it is an area that is used by our citizens for public access, environmental use. It is a stormwater pond, like a lot of our lakes. So that we're happy. They need to respond to some bidding questions and redesign requests and permitting. So we're working on that, and then hopefully they'll be able to get started in that later this year. With completion in early 2024.
Do they anticipate they're gonna make repairs to that building or?
I can, putting my day hat, job hat on, I can definitively say no.
Okay.
The building is beyond repair. It has internal rain downspouts in it,
Yeah.
and they went inside the walls and rotted everything. And it would cost more to repair it than it would cost to rebuild. There's no funding for it. And I think the only county that has appropriation for that would be to tear it down.
The gym, and there's a little meeting room at the front, is still in usable condition, and the specialized recreation program, we had the presentation here, they do utilize that facility and it does provide that service, but other than that, yeah. Probably the same architect that maybe built the library. Building.
Library lasted long.
Yeah.
It was from the late 80s.
Okay.
That was a new building.
Yeah. And it was an important resource for our community back in the day, and so it's lived its life, and now we'll look at what the next site is for that site. The partnership, Nisqually partnership, I just wanted to share that, we've been working with the Nisquallies, started with just kind of talking about providing some native art with a wood bench at the angling plaza, Angle Lane, when we put the new bathrooms by the dog park in that. And that relationship has grown to really, I think, be really amazing partnership between the city and the tribe. And really learning a lot about the tribe and not only the history, but their current use and activities. And so just moving forward with this interpretive educational project, which will be doing, 1.7 mile-ish, kind of finalizing that loop, Nisqually Loop Trail, doing interpretive elements, some artwork on the backside, some education on the kiosks to really let people know who the tribe is and, talk about the land use of this area. And, but it's been really a great partnership. And so we're working on an MOU and a work program. We received some legislative funding to move that forward, and just really working with the tribe there. Deciding on the themes for the interpretive elements, and they'll be working on the idea of the artwork is honoring Chief Lashai and I think his brother and their legacy for this area. But we'll be working with the tribe on all of those elements, and our role is really their role is the information, the story, the history, the language, the interpretive elements, and ours is to make sure that whatever we build is, appropriate for a public setting, it's made out of materials that will last and that, doesn't create a risk, but it's really helping to make it happen. So we've got a great partnership and we're excited about moving forward with that. And then Oak Brook Park, we had our meeting, remember, with Oak Brook Park folks, and did some sign charrettes, came up with a bunch of big ideas. Need a little bit more resource, but the council honored that and gave some more money towards that project. And so once we get some additional support regarding capital projects in our department, we'll be moving forward with that. So we figure we'll do real design and cost estimates and permitting in early 2024. And hopefully those improvements will be able to be done by the end of next year. So that's exciting. And then we also did our, met with all the Primitive Park neighbors, we hosted a meeting, got some good information from them. Although they were mostly worried about the squirrels and the chipmunk little toys, we do need to replace their playground and make some ADA accessible. So we'll be doing some improvements like that at that site. And again, that time frame will be about the same as Oak Brook Park. And then the park sign replacement program, as we provided some recommendations to council. They wanted additional work done. We hired a consultant. They're working on some design ideas, not only just for the park sign, but also a couple of reader boards and looking at some wayfinding in front of Fort Silicon because we have a new entrance. And how we can kind of get people into the park and also, once they get to the park, know where to go. It's 350 acres. If you've never been there before, even if you have been there before, you might not know there's a lake in the back or that there's a dog park, or you only know that there's a dog park. You don't know about any other exciting things. So we'll be working with them on that and be bringing something to you at our September meeting. Hopefully we'll be ready for that. So those are kind of the projects that are in the works in various stages, as we've shared. And then we've got quite a few that are ready to go. With our gateway monument signs, as I said, we have 2 left of the 14 plus, but of the 2 left. One is down at 84th, and it was 84th and Tacoma Mall Boulevard. That's like when you come off the freeway, and it used to be Ruby Tuesdays back in the day, and then it was a ferry store, and now I think it's a dental lab, but there's a big Shell station. So it's the end of Tacoma Mall Boulevard right there before you go over to Hosmer. So we're gonna be moving it closer towards Lake Park because it's just not a great location up there for it. It'll be a spot for visibility as well as public. We're gonna be moving it just down past the area, which again will be kind of a nice intro to the sign by the that retention pond that's there. Put the sign there. We'll have the new signal at Wards Lake and then the new entrance. So they'll really clean that area up and let people know about that space. So that's coming along. And then the last one is the area South Tacoma Way near the BNI. There's just a lot going on down there. So the Public Works Engineering is working on a road improvement project, I think from 88th down to the city down there by the BNI. City boundary, thank you. So we're trying to figure out how that finale, whatever that might look like, it might be smaller because it maybe doesn't have the footprint that we could use, or maybe there's a different way of showing that, hey, you're in Lakewood. So they're working on that. But that would be the finale for the gateway signs, yes. The park sign replacement program, that's just been in the works and carried forward until we get the design. Once we do get the design, that everybody agrees is the right, and, for our parks. We have the resources to do all 11 parks, and so that need new signage. So yeah, so that'll be happening next year, hopefully. It says the end of that's designed by 2023 with the implementation in 2024. Playground replacements, we do that. We have a 6-year CIP, and so we've looked at, between 10 and 15 years, depending on the playground. Our playgrounds hold up really well. We take good care of them, and but there are in various, stages, you want to make sure they stay safe. And so, as I talked about, Primley Park, that'll be coming up next year. An Active Park is due. Vito probably remembers when we removed the original playground in Active Park. It was our first Parks Appreciation Day. So that was, what, 20 years ago, 21 years ago?
No, it's 20.
Yeah. Well, our first one was, I've been here 22 years, so maybe 22 years ago, yeah. And Vito was in charge of that park. We had 10 sites and we had volunteers, and I think he broke a Tucci backhoe trying to pull out the footings. And that playground had 55-gallon drums full of cement that was the footing for all that. When he finally got it out, it was like a moon crater. It was such a big footprint. But anyway, since that time, it's a great community park, neighborhood park. And I will be looking at making some improvements there, so. And then we do have a school park site, Lake Louise, we did a community school, and so the timing for that playground has come up. But I'm not sure that's the right site that needs to have the replacement, and so the idea is to take a look and start having a conversation with the Clover Park School District. The council talked last night about like possibly looking at the old Lake City School site. It's a big open space with a fence around it, maybe that could be used as a potential neighborhood park until it's used for something else. Tillicum has a ridiculously tinker toy and some gravel playground for that school. I don't know what that is for that school with the numbers of students and such, but just work with the school district to see what are our needs. And if it combines with school district property, that could be a good partnership to look at those potential resources.
Boy, there's a lot of kids that go up to Idlewild Elementary on the weekends.
Yeah,
It's always busy,
yeah,
playing ball, playing on the playground. I take the grandkids up.
Yeah, that's just the same way.
Mhm.
Such a big, huge open field with playground at the end.
Yeah.
Constantly
Yeah.
used.
yeah. John Gower, some of those schools really have some needs too, and so that might be something to look at those spaces. I think, Idlewild used to have such a active parent group, as I think they have replaced playgrounds there.
They
so
have.
They're in really good shape.
They took the
So,
swings out, and Jason's kids go there.
mm,
Yeah, but they put some stuff out.
Yeah.
Which is still good.
yeah, so anyway, we'll work on that and see what's the best use of our resources. And again, it's just on the schedule because of the nature of the timing, and so we'll take a look at what's best when it's time to do that. And then Washington Park's on there, and that's an area that's always needed swings. Speaking of swings, I never got swings the first time. Washington Park is off of Washington Boulevard. It used to be called Forest Park way in the day, and it's another one of those little parks you might not know it's there. But when you're going up Washington Boulevard, right past Brunson's, before you go up the hill to 112, there's an opening there. There's a little parking lot, so there's a baseball field back there, and one of the first improvements the city made. It's kind of it's kind of a triangle. Yeah, so it's kind of wrapped by residential homes, but there's a good pathway in there, some trees, and they call it Forest Park in the early days, and then the city changed the name to Washington Park, but the county had owned the property. This was long before the Councilmember Anderson worked there. But it was a big forested area, and they called it Forest Park, and so then they cut all the trees down, and they were supposed to use that resource to develop it, and then they didn't, and so and then the city changed the name to Washington.
If you look at it from the air, an aerial map, it's a triangular parcel that kind of goes with the Masonic cemetery.
Yeah, that's right by it, yeah, on the other side. There's a little side.
Something that goes back,
Yeah.
basically pre-statehood.
Yeah.
To someone, piece of property.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So it's a nice little neighborhood park, and the ball field there in itself, that was put, and it was used all the time, really limited parking for the amount of park that's there. To use it as a ball field for games, there was some safety issues with people, so. But anyway, that park will have it stay as well in the future. And then Edgewater Master Plan, I think we referenced that. So in your packet, you have this, and Janet, you'd asked about it. This is the expansion area where that house is, where there's encumbrances all over the place. But also, we did this master plan, we started in 2019. We met with all the residents, we met on site, we had meetings at the council chambers, we came up with lots of big ideas to solve a lot of problems that they brought to our attention. That's what the master plan was created for. So time, there's been quite a few years since that time. There's some expansion area. We're finding other encumbrances in the area. And then the shoreline, rules have changed in that time as well. So we'll come back next year and take a look at, the end of this year. Take a look at, updating the master plan and looking at what is now good for this area, this day, this time, this place. And then with the idea of possibly being ready to apply for RCO funds. We were ready to apply, we wanted to apply, that was why this was done initially for the last round a few years ago. But because of the encumbrances, or encroachments, we really weren't able to move forward with that. And so we'll take a look with an updated plan to see how we might be able to move forward and make some improvements. This is the park that it's the last park on the list to really get its date, right? To really start making some improvements. So it might be looking at a phased option if we just haven't figured out all of the pieces, but we will be looking at that site again and we'll be coming your way.
They embrace the one-way option finally.
No, well, here's,
Some yes and some no.
Yeah.
It
well,
really-
I think like any project is they came up with a whole bunch of problems. So when we came up with a bunch of solutions, then it was like, well, we don't want those solutions, but so do you still want the problem? So, and then when they were talking about this, there was a whole lot of folks that came out and it was kind of like talking about a street end again. And there was a lot of conversation about, I think them and us and ours and theirs and yours. And so I think the council was very bold when they said this is public space and public access and.
It's, our, I think, reflective opinion is that this is Lakewood, Lake's half the name. We can create, some places are better than others for access. This has always been, is and always has been a public lake. And people who come out and say, we don't want those people on our lake. Don't carry a lot of weight compared to the other 62,000 people. So we're forging forward, and unfortunately we can't come up with a complete master plan until we resolve exactly where the boundaries are. And whether we're going to purchase the property or just reclaim the property that is and always has been city.
And there's some encroachments too, we've found with all the survey work that's been done regarding, some of, just like in anywhere is once you start doing some of the street projects and things like that, they find areas that have been traditionally used for the purposes that really are city property. So we'll be looking at all of those issues when we talk about, future planning, so.
And conversion of the one-way, I think, with the public works engineering, so that will involve some additional conversation with them as well as a traffic study. To see the feasibility of that.
Yeah, I hope they had done that a year ago when we
Well,
first looked at it, yeah.
But the problem that we had was that this became such a significant conversation.
Becomes the only.
We didn't really do the traffic study, and then, COVID hit, so while we were dealing with COVID, we're like, oh, let's do a survey, then you can do a survey while it's COVID. So that's what triggered all of this conversation. So we really haven't gone back to the master plan. And honestly, as you can see with, $26 million worth of projects and 19 active projects in Stacy, we've been busy. So we're kind of very.
The encroachment, frankly, the encroachment it's not the biggest right of way that the city has. And the encroachment at the south end is so significant that it really inhibited any comprehensive planning for even one-way road and parking. Yeah. So you have to resolve that to make it smooth traffic. Actually,
The right of way is actually 60 feet along that frontage, and the paved road edge is only 18 feet, so.
For 2 lanes,
and the roads also.
Right.
And
right,
well,
right.
on.
Within 200 feet of the shoreline.
Yeah. We're gonna do our best with, moving forward with that. Now it's on
plan to move forward with that, so. So do you want to talk a little bit about Harry Todd?
Yes, Terry's had pickleball courts, so we anticipate some grant funding to support that project and with quite a bit of work in the design for the submittal of that grant. So we anticipate that the design package is going to be fairly expedited, but assuming that we'll have some additional support to begin that beginning in 2024, anticipate construction in 2025. So it'll be conversion of the tennis courts behind the Royal Club facility for accessible pickleball courts with some accessible parking improvements in that area. And the Fort Slocum Park Pavilion acoustics, just looking to improve the acoustics in that space for meetings and use, and anticipate really a ceiling statement of some kind to accommodate that, because there's limited wall and floor treatments based on the doors, and anticipate that will be completed before as well.
And then, just as we've been working and planning and expanding all of these events and activities, we recognize that a lot of the areas that we use for ADA accessible parking during concerts, during other kinds of activities at the park isn't accessible when we're using them for food trucks and vendors and things. And so we're gonna create some overflow parking, primarily that's ADA accessible, probably adjacent to the pavilion that meets with the overflow parking that we use over there, so that we can make it easier for people to access our activities and events, and also to support pavilion use and things like that. So that'll be happening this year. We were working with engineering firms are really busy. Everybody's really busy right now. So we were working with an engineer firm, and then a person in that firm left. And so they're focusing on, like, over at the shops and the fuel tank removal. They were also going to be working on this. So we're trying to make sure that stays on the forefront of that planning, juggling a lot of different things. So that's coming up too.
Is that gonna be paved or is it gonna be done?
It'll be paid, yeah, to make it ADA accessible, they'll pay it, yeah. We'll probably look at it like 100 spots-ish.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but
Which you need.
that's what you need for, that's kind of a good standard vendor, like the pavilion, so.
Look towards the H barn too.
That would support that activity as well, be
What
somewhat.
a big place for it.
Yeah, exactly. And then just future projects that are on the horizon, you know, the H barn, that's a project that we've been talking about for some time. Partners for Parks is focusing on raising $3.5 million to support the contribution of the city's $4 million. But they're working really hard. They've raised about $1.3 million, with probably more around the corner, because they're really starting to amp up with some different groups. Once they can get closer to that 3.5, then the city will start moving forward with doing some work to support that project. So it's very exciting. The city's been talking about a downtown park for many years. The location has sort of varied based on some of the subdevelopment plans that the city's been doing. It's really a way of kind of uniting the middle of, you know, the city doesn't have really a center, and so it'd be a place to kind of create that. So in our big picture planning, we talked about a 2-acre park or a 4-acre park. And so the idea is kind of finalizing that location, and then doing some planning and how it connects to our greenways and walkways and sidewalks and neighborhoods. So there's some work happening in that area. And then finally, the Camp Murray boat launch. Again, an important resource for our community. It's next to Camp Murray, you access it through Tillicum. And it's what's called a rural boat launch, because it's really underdeveloped, which is how Fish and Wildlife manages and develops and manages their spots. The idea is that the city, once we can get concurrence with Camp Murray, which every time we're kind of almost there, you know, they change leadership, as happens with military installations. Camp Murray is our National Guard facility, and we have Army, Air Force, National Guard.
State emergency management.
And state emergency management, thank you. And so the idea is to do a master plan, again, to be ready, so we really know what we could do down there to make improvements, what the cost would be, and then go looking for additional resources such as grants or other kinds of support. So that's on the horizon as well. I think the city's put some ARPA money towards a master plan, and then we're just looking for kind of thumbs up. So
So that is, the capital project.
So, I mean, we just summarized this in a visual format to kind of overlay, you know, a look ahead to follow down some of these developments.
So there you go.
So,
A lot of stuff, you know, we talked a little bit last night, the mayor was talking about the investment that the city's made, and we're just so. You know, grateful, even just with the support of the projects, you know, we used to have our $250,000 projects, right? You'd have a $300,000 project, and now they're $7-8 million projects, you know, and some of it's because they're more complex sites, they're larger sites, the permitting is extensive and crazy that we have to do to get there. They don't just happen in 6 months or a year now, they're really multi-year projects, so. But it's really, we're really looking at equity across the city, you know, parks are for everybody, everybody's welcome in parks. And they're in all of our neighborhoods and our areas, and the city's really, you know, thanks to the council, has really made an investment in their community, and it was part of why people wanted to be a city, and I think the city's really come forward and helped them, really just create these great spaces for our community, so we're grateful for that, and I think citizens really appreciate it, makes it a community, so healthy and vibrant community.
good report. Any comments, board comments?
You know, I love the, I never hear this, but the walkways and sidewalks around Gravel Lake. It's like a park.
Yeah.
In the far future, do we see the parks putting some art through there or some sort of?
Yeah, we talked about that. In fact, when you look at, I don't have a city map here, but when we were looking at accessible open spaces throughout the community, there was sort of this big hole in the middle, which was the Gravelly Lake area, and how you access that. And, you know, is there open space? Is there a park? And so they did talk about the walkway around Gravelly Lake as being a linear park. And so the infrastructure is installed there. We have talked about benches, and we've talked about trees with art and trees. We talked about art, like it could be an art walk. So that is definitely on the horizon. Yeah, as an idea, and just how you do it properly, right? So it's still accessible and it's manageable and it's not, you know, so it's just a whole nother work program. So
I think they're like over right there for the natural crown and the ring.
yeah.
Once they get Nyanza done, the thought was to have a loop. You have, it's like 2.5 miles all the way around, and so that's a good walk.
Yeah, probably 2025, I think, for now, it has to be built almost exclusively with local money instead of grants because of the category of arterial. But you brought up a good point about that being the whole, Mary, because I'll give you a bad example of Park Athlete. I was down at the US Open, the LA Country Club is thought to be worth $8 billion for land sandwiched in between Beverly Hills and Westwood, two of the most exclusive areas in LA. And right outside where the shuttle, the US shuttle took us, is a park, and this is Arvin Hammer Lakes. Evidently he donated it. It's a perfectly manicured pitch and putt golf course. It has 2 lawn bowls. It has one of the biggest big toys I've ever seen. And I'm sure, and it's an LA City Park. I'm sure that doesn't exist in at least LA. In Lakewood, consciously, the city council looked at it. I live just off of Gravelly Lake and have open space out in my backyard. We don't need a park. The walkway is nice. There are no, if you put a map of how far you have to go to get to a park, you put a pin in the middle of Gravelly Lake. That's probably the most distant place from a park in the city. But we built Springbrook out of whole cloth. Then Harry Todd worked out in Lake City, and put parks where people needed them more. And it wasn't some virtue signaling like some city councils do. It was because that's where the parks needed to be. And so create access. So, but you need the land. So as I leave this venture, keep in mind, you have to keep pushing to get dirt, because you don't have the dirt, you don't have the park. And that's one of the things that's great about the Camp Murray initiative, which we started 10 years ago. It is that the dirt wouldn't cost anything. I mean, where could you, as a parks department, could you get a big chunk of land on a lake without having to pay? That's why it's so attractive.
You feel the same way about the, this Lake City.
Yeah.
School. park.
Yeah.
That's like perfect place for.
Wildlife area. 100 acres right there.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, the partnerships, the city does have a history of partnering, right? And really looking for those partnerships that are gonna benefit the citizens in the best way possible. And, that, to develop the boat launch is gonna be substantial, of course, but to purchase that land would be, it would take forever, so, yeah. So,
Director's report?
Well, I'll just do a real quickie since a lot of it is capital I've already covered is. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Summerfest was a great success. Those of you that were there, probably figure about 25,000 people came through in a day. The vendors there are wonderful and loyal and many sold out. People were super happy. 97% happy with what was going on there. Couple of hiccups, but that's okay. But great events, and we measure that with sales, like we get all the information from the food sales, the kids zone, and we're getting some data from the Tacoma Visitor Convention Bureau. They have some secret data collection things that they'll be giving us some resources on that. So I'm excited to learn more about that. Farmers Market is going, it's just expanded. It's at Fort Stoughton Park. It's on Tuesdays. And it's just like a mini Summerfest with all these amazing vendors and food, and it's set up in such a way that it's accessible and there's shade, and then it flows right into the concerts in the park. So if you want to go now, you have 15 more minutes to get food from the Hulu Hulu Chicken before you go to the concert. We have the street festival. We have one in June. We'll have another one coming up here in August 14th, is it? The 12th? Yeah, one of these days. August 12th, and then the Fiesta de la Familia was a street festival last year, and it was really the city, as we look at making sure that we're really looking at supporting our community, is really reaching out to the Latino population, our Hispanic partners, and really making sure that you can see the artwork that's been here. That's been a real conscious effort of the Arts Commission. And so what started as a festival, as a street festival, has grown, and now will be at First Broken Park this year in September. And so, again, really representing our community. So that's coming up, and so we're busy trying, and we have day camp going on. We've got our senior programs, older adults are trying to do it from this building and the pavilion and the parking lots and the trunks of their cars, and they're doing a good job to try and build that group back. And they're starting to do some programs again, more programs, but you gotta have a home, especially with older adults. They're not really crazy about being nomadic. They want to have a space that they can be comfortable with, that they are comfortable with how they get there, what the facilities are for them, and a sense of safety. So we're really working for that. So it's a work in progress as well. So that's that. Our next meeting is typically in September because we don't meet in August, except we usually have a fun party in August. I don't know if you want to have a fun party this summer. I think last year, did you guys even have one? I don't know, it's the middle of my life. I think we stopped. So, couldn't remember, it was a blur. But if we want to, what are people's thoughts about having a party this year? In August is usually when we do it.
Wow, this is pretty cool.
We usually do it Tuesday. I mean, we've done it usually
I know, I've got a lot of parties starting up for Partners for Parks starting tomorrow.
yeah, or this tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do it, I think I can host it this year if you want. You could do it at my house. I was swimming pool if it's warm out. We've done it at Vito's, we've done it at your house. I mean, I'm happy to host one if you've got a lot going on.
Can't you send a duty pool out and see who's in? Can you do that? And
Yeah, we typically do it on like either the night of Parks Board or sometime around that period of time so that we can see, maybe we'll do it the week before. See what's happening.
barbecue and fun.
Yeah, it's just super informal.
Yeah.
We don't do any business, so it's legal. So we'll do that. That's all I got.
All right. Any board comments? Pierce County Trails Day is Saturday, the only one occurring in Lakewood's in the wildlife area.
Well, I think there's a group that wants to do some restoration at Fort Silicon. I don't know if they're especially sanctioned.
I didn't see it on their website.
It is on the website. It's on the trails, but it's on their Facebook. So Derek Faust said he found it. The trails day.
Oh, well, they were organized by city, and there's only one Lakewood.
Yeah.
He said he saw it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we just heard about it, that there's a group that wants to do some like invasive plant.
Blackberry
Blackberry,
removal.
blackberry
So
removal.
we're gonna do that. So that's Derek Faust and what's her name? Margaret. No, Mary. She's the volunteer who approached you and said, I want to organize volunteers to do something.
Yeah, we're just, like I said, typically when we do volunteer projects, we're all in the loop and we just kind of heard about this, so. we
Yeah.
just-
So I don't know, could I was helping Derek, and Mary get connected with you, and then they sent it to the trails, Derek registered with Trails Day. And
Yeah,
he
so
said
they
he didn't
should,
see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say if they're gonna do something on public property, they shouldn't just register on their own, they should work with us on that, because.
I'd sent out a request to the volunteers that went.
Yeah.
They, I see them, and Alan was the only one at the time that had responded about something going on.
So Mary never got in touch with you?
Well, I did get an email, I was out of office last week, I did get an email, and I did see that they were wanting to do that restoration.
So it might not be crowded so much, but if people are out there doing
Yeah, I
something.
think Derek's planning to be there, Mary's planning to be there, so they'll, if there's anything like, I'm leaving for Scotland on Friday.
Oh, how exciting.
I was in Africa 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God, was it for fun or?
No, it was a sustainable agriculture mission, helping with goats, chickens, tomatoes, and bees. Very interesting.
Exciting, you should share that at one of the future meetings, did you take pictures and such, you want to
Yeah,
do
a
a
few.
bit about it?
A few.
I think that'd be
Yeah,
very.
a lot of fun. Came back with 60 bites. You know, but, so basically what we're looking at is in the villages around in Malawi and Forest Park is trying to set up demonstration gardens. Their soil we tested it, and there's no phosphorus and there's no nitrogen. So the idea of compost and fertilization, it would look maybe simple, that kind of thing. How to keep goats a food source. But many of the people in the villages just have goats running around.
And then they eat the tomatoes.
Well, they get parasites. So it's like, how do you keep a goat? So we built a demonstration goat pen out of materials that they could build without any tools. They don't use twine, they use shredded tires. Make long twine thing. Then we have chickens, same thing with the chickens. So what we're doing is we're dealing with some orphans that live in the villages and getting guardians for them and giving the guardians the stuff to help the orphans stay in the village and getting the chief and everybody in on it. So all of this like goes on and on. And then 90% of Africa cooks their food on firewood. We have this incredible deforestation going on. People drive their bikes up to the mountains, cut down the trees. It's illegal, but no one's going to enforce it. And then drive it back and make charcoal and sell firewood because they eat corn, dried corn, which has to be boiled to eat it. So it's
They
just like,
did the Burns Lab on Vashon Island, that's still working exactly on that project. Last 10 years, really good friend runs that. And they're working in Africa both for that and the shade production to reduce the.
okay, that's, I
They're
would,
developing stoves for that.
yeah, so I like to, about that.
Yeah.
So
It's
the
on
fire-
Vashon Island Burns Lab.
Yeah. Okay. And then, coppice forestry, you guys have you ever heard of coppicing or pollarding? It's an old way, Henry VIII had some rules about pollarding in his laws, but a pollard is basically a pole yard. So you take trees that sprout and you cut them down after they grow so big, you cut them down and then they send sprouts up and you can get poles that way. So you get your building material, but you can also grow firewood that way. And so a lot of the villages have planted rows and rows of eucalyptus, but eucalyptus leaves have a natural herbicide. So they're killing everything around the trees. So, it's a huge black hole. So, yeah, my husband and I are very interested in continuing this, it's like, wow, this is forestry on steroids.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing in Scotland?
No, and I'm quite Scottish, and one of my ancestors' families has a family reunion every 4 years at the castle. They're going to the castle. And you can go listen to her horse and go to the Highland Games. And attend and watch. And play croquet on the lawn.
That's very exciting.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Somebody's been off August sleeping.
Well, maybe you can pull off coming over and having a barbecue.
Yeah, I would like that. If it's not, we're coming back on the 14th.
Yeah.
Cool. And if you get a chance, drive down Veterans Drive and look at our new community garden.
It is so cool, and your mural, it looks so good. That's the mural, I love it.
Thank you.
Love it.
That was a gift from Sherwin-Williams. They said, we will donate the paint, we will donate the muralists, we will donate the volunteers to paint it. So buy Sherwin-Williams.
Fabulous, that's wonderful.
Where on Veterans Drive?
By Alameda and Veterans, the Lake City.
You can't miss it when you're driving down there.
It's
It's
red.
really beautiful, it's very bright and cheery, it just makes you smile.
I'm good.
I love it,
Good.
really love it.
Anything else? Okay, can I have a motion?
We adjourn.
Okay, go. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.